Hi, everybody. Welcome to Leadership Live. We are here for episode number 9, and hopefully, we're hoping the connection here is solid and that we don't have any technical difficulties with all of this. I'm here with Jared, and we are live together for the first time, I think, right?
We're doing it. We're live.
I mean, at the same time.
At the same time. Usually there's a little bit of a delay.
Yeah.
Welcome. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thanks for joining.
Yeah, thank you guys for being here. So today we are going to be talking about time management. As we've heard from many of those that are following us in our group, time management is the number one concern that we are faced with as we're trying to navigate our week as leaders. And the thing that seems to be taking the most attention and time away from us when we're trying to perform at our best. So today we have an incredible guest. Jared, I'll go ahead and let you go ahead and introduce him.
Yeah, so we have, when we heard from our private group that people wanted time management tips, we kind of went out and started trying to find who really knows time management. And certainly there's a lot of resources out there, but I came across a gentleman who is clearly a pro. And after doing a little bit of research, I discovered that this guy knows what he's talking about. He spent 30 years, that's right, 30 years teaching people tips and tricks and how to manage their time. And so Mike Collins is a veteran in this space, knows what he's doing, and we are just thrilled to have him on with us today.
Awesome. All right, Mike, we're going to go ahead and bring you on. Also, guys, really quickly, before we get the conversation started, if you have any questions regarding time management or any stories that you want to share with us or guidance as to how to best navigate your week, please share them below. And then, of course, if you know anybody who this topic is perfect for, share it with them. And also, all the likes and all the loves are very much appreciated. Mike, hi.
Hi, folks. It's a delight to be here with you.
Mike, how's it going?
Such a pleasure to have you.
Mike, can you get a little closer to the microphone? You seem kind of far away, so that way we can hear you a little bit better.
Yeah. You guys doing good?
Yeah, doing well. Good. Well, hey, Mike, we're excited to have you. So, certainly time management is something that everybody these days is trying to get on top of. Of course, with social media, with all of the technology boom, there's just more people, more things that are trying to get our attention, our time. And so, why don't you tell us kind of what it is you do? Just overall, give us kind of a once over, what you do for your profession.
Sure. I have a company called The Perfect Workday, and I'm based in the Research Triangle region here in North Carolina. And I find that I do probably 100 and 120 seminars a year. And basically, corporations, government agencies, associations, and the two biggest topics I talk about are change management and time management. And I find that they are very closely related. In times of change, you got to have a fairly good handle on your time, or the change just gets away from you. But time management, you're exactly right. So many of us are wondering where our lives are going, where our time goes, and so you picked a great topic. I can certainly understand why your group wants to hear about this.
Yeah. I love how you say we want to know where our lives go, because You're totally right. It's like there's so many options out there, and we just are dealing it away every single day. Can you tell us what your 30 years, I'm just blown away by that amount, 30 years of experience. Tell us what you've learned about time management, from 30 years of teaching it to people.
Jared, I have to thank you for something. I've done this sort of thing quite often, but the title that you gave for our time together, in talking about in 30 years, what kind of tips, last night I gave that a lot of thought. What have I learned? And I can kind of go through it in a fairly linear way, but let me offer it in another way that I think might interest you and interest your guests a little more. Your wonderful title prompted me to realize there are 3 areas to focus on as far as time management. And the first one kind of is going to surprise you. What are your rewards? What are the rewards you want from the end of time? I don't think enough people think in those terms. If we think what we want to get out of it, I think we see our time, we start understanding the value of our time maybe a little bit better than we normally do. The second thing I would push people to think about are the choices they're making about their time. One of the things that it intrigues me, and I'm going to use your phrase, this just blows me away. Two researchers from Princeton a couple of years ago did some studies about what our to-do lists are like. How much do we think we have to get done? And the average person, the average American, has about 137 things in mind that they believe they want to get done or need to get done.
137. And we can only remember 3 at a time, right?
And all three of us are at least minimally intelligent people, so we have to get 137 things done. The third area, though, and again, your wonderful title has prompted me to think in these terms. Your title, the words in your title prompted me to think in a different way. A friend of mine has a large art piece in her home, and it says, "Words make worlds." I even wrote it down here so I can get it right.
Words make worlds.
What are the words we use in relationship to time? I think that the phrase time management is a pretty innocuous type of phrase. But what if you use words like making your dreams come true? These are the resources that dreams come true, or to create a successful life. Your term a second ago about that a lot of us just kind of deal our lives away, and we do. So to think about that, what are the rewards you're looking for? What are the choices you're making? And what are the words you use in referring to the time of your life? That increasingly, because of your title, I've really kind of started looking at those three things over the last 24 hours in terms of what I've come to understand about after 30 years of talking to people about how to use it.
So do you find that those are amazing, incredible insights, Mike? And so the question that comes up for me is, when you're working with your clients, do you find that oftentimes they're struggling with time management because their perspectives towards it are negative?
It could be. Understand that you have two groups of people in life in relative to time. There's group A, and those are the people who say, I have a limited amount of time and I have a lot I want to do. So they're pretty focused. Then you got group B, and their idea is, if I get this done, I get it done. If I don't, I don't. So we're running into people all the time who have different concepts. In fact, let me put it to you this way. Relative to time, many of us speak different languages. And we've all walked into settings in which the people in the room literally speak different languages. And we know how confusing that is, how hard it is to get things done. So quite a few of us have different time languages that we use. So how do you kind of get on the same space as those folks?
I imagine that probably the reward of time has something to do with that different language, right? And I love that you're just pointing out, like, what are the rewards? Because so often where we put our time, the rewards are false. Right. Spending a ton of time watching television, or just wasting time on our phones. Those are things that ultimately aren't really truly rewarding. So can you talk to us about some of the misconceptions of rewards? Where are people missing the boat when it comes to their rewards?
Now, your terms in terms of wasting the time, they don't think they're wasting time. A lot of those folks don't. They may get a type of reward from getting. They may get a reward that for them is what they wanted to get from it. Whereas you.
I think we lost Mike a little bit. Can you guys hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me? Have we been choppy this whole time?
I think it's been pretty good until right now, but I think we lost Mike. Let's see if he can come back on.
Okay.
He's in like freeze frame. So
you're right. Okay, so let me see if I can drop him back out and then bring him back in.
Great. And while we're doing that, I just love the concept of rewards, and it's so interesting. Yeah, you're right. People don't really think that they're wasting time. Sometimes because maybe we're not quantifying it. Sometimes we're not qualifying it. We're not thinking, well, how does this contribute to where ultimately I want to go? And how do I, is this helping me get there or is it not? And so I just really appreciate that perspective, because I don't think I've thought of it in that way. Although I know at the end of the day, this isn't really helping me. This is something I should be doing different, or there are all of these other things that would help me that I should be spending my time, working on and working towards. So that's an interesting way of looking at it for sure.
Absolutely. And then seeing it, of course, as a process of gratification. Again, the
Yep.
reward, what is the reward and how will you feel at the end after having completed it? And I think that that's another thing too, is that a lot of times we get stuck in the feeling that we have prior to doing the work, which tends to hold us back from getting started. And then we're not thinking about how good or the sense of relief that we'll feel afterwards. And I feel like I've actually found myself in that space quite often, especially when it comes to like paying bills as a perfect example,
Yeah.
one of those things like, oh God, like the bills are coming, right? But then once I've paid the bills, I feel so great, so again, I just have to remind myself like, this is going to feel so great afterwards. So again, the gratification that comes with the reward of having completed it. And I'm not sure, I think, should I?
No, he sent me a text. So he says the screen is frozen. So I told him to come out and go back in. So, yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to take a seat. I'm worried that how is the broadcast sounding, guys? For those of you that are tuning in, can we get some comments from you guys?
Chris says he can hear us both. And we've got a lot of people. We've got Carl and Carla. Welcome. Chris.
Yeah, welcome, guys.
Chris and Chris with a C and Chris with a K. We've got a lot of cool Chris's.
Yeah.
Alyssa, welcome. So, Shondell, hello.
Hey, okay, Mike is back on. So let's see if this works. And then for those of you watching, again, time management is a huge issue that we often find ourselves trying to cope with, struggling with, trying to overcome. And so this episode is really for you guys. So if there are issues that you guys are facing or, strategies or tips specifically that you're looking for relevant to your own personal experience, share those things below. Ask those questions. We are here to make sure that you guys get the most value, especially from Mike while we have him here with us this episode. Hi, Mike, you're back.
And can I add one more thing to that? Sorry, Mike.
Yes.
I'm going to cut you off for a second, but let's be vulnerable here, people. We all know that there's those days where we lay down at night and we're like, oh, I had so much that I wanted to accomplish today and I didn't get to it. So let us know, like, what do you think is happening in those times? What questions do you have? Because we've got the time management guru here who's going to be able to give you some advice and tips. So let's definitely just come clean, guys. What are your time management skeletons? Bring them out.
I'm seeing this
100%.
I'm seeing this wonderful question here. What are the rewards of time management? Very simply, to me, the reward of time management is that your life goes the way you want it to go. And I love your example of laying in bed at night thinking, things didn't go the way I wanted to go today. Well, why didn't they go that way? Was it because of the choices you made, choices other people made? Was it because I found that if you understand the rewards that you get and you can hold those rewards out in front of you, very often the rewards will pull you through the obstacles. So what are the rewards? What kind of life do you want?
Mike, what kind of rewards should we be looking out for? Because I mean, I'm just thinking about, okay, here are the rewards that what we ultimately want is probably, more success. Maybe we want more time. We want that job or that promotion. We want to be good at something. But then somebody comes along and they're like, hey, I want your help. And now maybe our reward shifts to, well, helping this person will get me some recognition or, that type of thing. So talk to us about how to define or pick the right rewards.
Okay. There are about 6 or 7 areas of life that I encourage people to look at. Physical, when I say the word mental, I'm talking about what do you want to learn? Occupation, family, spiritual, community, financial, those sorts of things. And I ask people in these areas, if life works the way you want it to work, then what do you want? And once you kind of start figuring out what you want, you can start kind of reverse engineering it and saying, okay, in order to get that, what do I have to do? And what kind of time am I going to have to take to be able to do it? One of the things, let's just take fitness very quickly. People who want to lose weight, it ain't hard. You dial back calories a little bit and you up your calorie expenditure. But one of the conversations I have with people a lot is the concept of play and what is fun for you. What can you find that's play or fun that tends to burn up calories? I like going to the gym. I'll go 5 or 6 times a week. But when I tell people that, they go, God, I just don't like going to the gym. I think fine. To me, it's like they got this big room full of toys that I get to play with. So I don't mind going in there and spending an hour 5 or 6 times a week. If you're really burning up time on other things, then figure out, park your car at the other side of the parking lot and walk into the grocery store. Don't try to find the closest parking space. Use the stairs instead of the elevator. You kind of work the stuff into your day. I don't know if we're kind of getting off track from what you wanted, but there are about 6 or 7 areas of life, and if you can figure out what you want and then reverse engineer it to find out what's it going to take to get there and what kind of time.
Yeah. Well,
I think that's
great.
No, oh no, I think that that's absolutely great. And I think, again, it just goes to show the power in changing the way that you're thinking about the work that you're doing, regardless of whether it's actually work that you're doing in your professional life or work that you're doing in your personal life. Sorry, Jared, go ahead.
No, I think Mike hit the nail on the head too. Like, it really does start with that clear intention of what are you trying to achieve in your health, in your career, in your relationships, and then evaluating some of those things that come your way and say, is this actually helping me get that? Is it high enough on the priority list that it's going to have that impact? We've got a couple of questions I want to ask you, Mike. Chris asked, what if he's tried time management things like a list, calendar blocking, and he feels like it just doesn't stick. He can't hang with it. What are your tips or advice for really finding something that works?
First off, Chris, those are great questions, and I get those sorts of things a lot. The question I would have back to you is why? Why do you think lists haven't worked? Why do you think calendar blocking is not working? Most of us are intelligent enough that we can kind of figure out, I've had people tell me, I do lists and then I lose them. Or I do 5 or 6 different lists and that sort of thing. I would tell someone like that if you keep losing it, then you got to figure out a way to keep that list close to you. You fold it up and keep it in your pocket. You keep it on your phone, that sort of thing. And I'll find people will get pads, they'll jot things down, and you just lay the pad down and walk away. Again, it goes back, but I'll say this. If I told you that you could get some of those successes in life by not losing that pad with your to-do list on it, you can do it. I'll give you a better example. People who have children, if I went to you and I said, look, your life with your child is going to be exactly what you want it to be, but you got to hang on to this list. Because this list is going to be the key of having the life with your child you want. They never lose. Always know that it's good. So again, it goes back to what rewards you want. What do you want out of all this? Whether it's life or this specific situation. You've got to make it as important as possible to you.
So true.
A lot of people, when they talk about time management, they expect to hear the issue of the list and that sort of thing. If you'll allow me to go off on a little tangent for just a second, I would suggest anyone who's watching us, if they've got something to take notes on and something to write with, that they draw a triangle somewhere in the middle of their page. Our whole day, time management is really a combination and a mixture of 3 issues. One is time, and time is the only resource where everybody starts out the same. The second are people, and how we come in contact with people. Now, I'm watching both your faces, so I'm going to ask you a question, and I'm going to watch your reaction. How often do we all run into someone that as soon as that person starts talking, you're thinking, should have packed for lunch. We're going to be here.
I just tried to give you a really big reaction. That's all I tried to do right there.
So timing people are trying. The third side is stuff. And stuff is everything from emails to the earphones you have, the clothes we wear, all these things we've got to keep up with. That to-do list you wrote. The mixture of those 3 things is kind of where all our time goes.
So I think I probably interrupted us. Can you identify those 3 things again, just so that we're really clear and our viewers are really clear? What are those 3 things that people have to think through?
Sure. The 3 sides of the triangle are time, the only resource where everybody starts the same, people, and our interactions with other people, because they take varying amounts of time, and then stuff, those things in our lives that really kind of take time to deal with those things, find them, carry them.
Yeah.
So the mixture of those 3 things, time, people, and stuff, that really is what counts for where our time goes every day and what we're trying to track as far as time management.
So what do you say? So let's pretend that I'm a wreck, right? I mean, I just cannot check something off my list to save my life. Where do I start? Do I start with people? Do I start with stuff? Do I start with time? Like, what's my step 1?
Okay. Right. Step 1 is really trying to figure out where do my major challenges lie? Because the biggest problem, each of them has a big problem. The biggest problem with time is the lack of focus. You're trying to get something done, and then something over here happens that pulls your focus away. Let me give you a great example. You two folks are fairly young. I'm 65.
We're the same age. We all look great.
What I recommend with a lot of folks who are 40 and 30 is caregiving. They're in a situation in which they have to care for a spouse or a parent, that sort of thing. Well, the instant you find out you're a caregiver, your focus is taken away from job and a lot of other things, and over the how am I going to handle these things? So the biggest problem we run into as far as time is lack of focus. Well, the best way to deal with lack of focus, and I hate to tell people this, but it is such a cliche, is that you do this. On the people side, the biggest problem we run into with people is miscommunication. Well, you can lower miscommunication by asking more and better questions. And the basic question is, let me ask you, what was Bugs Bunny's question?
What's up, Doc?
Yeah. On a regular basis, you ask them in one way or another, what's up, Doc? You get this steady stream of information that lowers miscommunication and raises clarity. Down at the bottom, the stuff, and I'll tell you that when I said down at the bottom, 99% of the people, if I say triangle, label it, they go time, people, stuff. Stuff's always at the bottom. But the stuff part is disorganization. I mean, I would hate for you to miss out on having a life you want simply because you cannot find a piece of information or something that's hidden in your closet or hidden in your desk that you just can't put your hands on when you need it. And the best way to lower problems of organization is what I call the 30-second secret. Don't walk away from your desk at lunch, and don't walk away from your desk at the end of the day without taking 30 seconds just to put a couple of things up. The cumulative effect of 30 seconds, 30 seconds, 30 seconds gets you organized and keeps you organized. So to go back to your wonderfully concise question, I would ask people, look at your day, look at your life, and ask yourself in these three areas, is it lack of focus? Is it miscommunication? Is it organization? And I'd have them put them in an order. What is your biggest problem? What's second? What's third? And you're going to kind of go after that.
Love that. I want to, and I think Natalia probably dropped off. She'll come back on. In thinking about the communication, I mean, so, you know, Natalia and I are both coaches, and we work with business owners. We work with individuals. And I know one of the biggest challenges that my clients have is around the communication piece to other people who want to be, you know, on their agenda. They want my clients to do work for them, to be catering to them. And so what do you tell people when it comes to really communicating about what you can do, what you can't do, what you say yes to, what you say no to?
One of the things that I ask people to do is have a fairly direct talk with them. You want to set expectations. You want to ask, what are your expectations? And here are my expectations. Now, once we talk about expectations, we kind of figure out, okay, are you willing to help me with my expectations? And I'm willing to help you. But it also gives me the chance to say, you know, I'm okay on this, this, and this. I don't know if I'm okay on that. Now, there are some people who have trouble with that. And there are other people who just have the attitude, look, just tell me what to do. So one of the things that you've got to try to have is that fairly open conversation about what do we expect from each other. There are folks who've been married for 50 years who've never had a conversation. With bosses and people they manage who've never had a conversation.
Yep.
Is this, Jared, what did you ask about the delegation?
Well, I asked about communicating. You know, how do we communicate to others our boundaries, essentially, and how do we protect our time against all the people who want it and our attention? So,
well, and that's so I think that this question piggybacks nicely off of that. Is a lot of times, you know, because people are often not only managing their own time, but managing others' times, right? And then managing projects, if not multiple projects at once. What is the role that delegation plays in effective time management?
If you are a manager, it has a huge impact on time management. I mean, what a lot of that comes down to as far as the delegation issue is, in a program, I'll talk about the resources we have available. And the 5 resources are time, energy, ego, money, and love. And I don't know if that's a little too fast there. But from the
say those again and slow them down for us.
We all have only 5 resources, but we're talking about our personal life or our work life. And the 5 resources are time, energy, and we all tend to have an up and a down during the day usually as far as our energy level. Do you know when that is for yourself? Ego has more to do with who we see ourselves as being. Uh, I'll share people as far as resources from a money standpoint, but it's more of a, are you willing to invest in yourself? And then the final one is luck. Most people rely on luck to have the type of life they're going to have, relative to time management or anything else. Here's a scary proposition. 45% of the managers and supervisors in America have never had any sort of instruction in being a manager.
Right. Right.
So if you're talking about delegation, trying to help someone understand, be hard on the problem and soft on the person. Hard on the problem and soft on the person. And
love that.
Incredible.
If you communicate with people that way, they can see that you care about them as a person. And they're more likely to reciprocate. To go back to the delegation, you've got to find a way to kind of break down, this is what we want. I tell folks all the time, what do you want? How do you want it? And when do you want it? You can be that specific. Here's what we need. Here's how we need it. And how it has to do with how do we want, what's the process, what's the quality we want, and when do we need it? Now, can you give me those three things? What I want, how I want it, and when I want it. And people usually have a reasonable answer. And that's the start of delegation. The whole point of management is getting more done with others. And this ego thing is involved. And people believe that nobody can do it as well as I can. Well, your job as manager is to help them learn how to do it as well as you need it done.
I love that. Oh, go ahead.
So go ahead. No, go ahead, Jared.
I was just going to say, I love that because I think there's, like you said, there's so many managers out there who have never really had that guidance of how to be a manager, how to be a leader. And in some respects, there's kind of the same idea with time management. And you think we come up through the system with, our education in our schools where we've got a schedule. We know where we have to be, when we have to be there. We get a job. We know what we're going to do, where we have to be, when, why. And then we get into like a leadership role, which is a little bit more ambiguous. And we've never really been taught some of those things like time management. Like, how do you prioritize your stuff? How do you schedule out your biggest priorities? And so I like what you're saying, that having some of that footing helps you then be able to teach others how to manage time. And ultimately, if you're a manager, you've got to manage your time and you have to manage your people's time. So you've got to do both to be able to really optimize the efforts of your people and maximize results.
Two things to think about. Most people are promoted to management because someone up the ladder saw qualities in that person that they want to have rub off on other people. So if we promote you to manager, then maybe these other folks you'll be managing will act like you. But whatever made you successful as that individual worker may not make you successful as a manager. One of the best things anyone promoted should do is go to their boss and say, here's some training I need. I know that I need this. Most folks don't do that. But if you went to someone and said, I know I'm going to have a lot of responsibilities, I need a little bit of training in time management so I can do a better job. If you couch it like that, it doesn't come across with a shortage of a talent or skill that I need. It's coming across as, I want to do a better job, and here's how you can help.
I love that. Can I make one comment, Natalia? I know you have a question, but I can't tell you how many times I've come across a manager who's expecting perfection from his people when his own garage is like full of junk and all. It's like we just have to level the playing field and say, hey, we're all in this together. We're all learning this. Here's what I'm learning about time management. Hopefully that's applicable to you. And then, help in that way. So awesome insight.
One thing
I do have.
One of the things I encourage managers all the time in training is ask your folks to do it to do this. If they're not already doing one, ask them to do it to do this. And then on a regular basis, ask to see their list. Because you'll start finding out pretty quickly, are they making the list at all? Then second thing is you'll start seeing, are they focused on the things that you as the manager believe they need to be focused on? Plus, you're giving them some training and building their skills so that they can be more valuable to you. Because if they'll handle their time correctly, that washes back in a very positive way to you as the manager.
That is gold.
Right. That is amazing. Really quick, Mike, I know we gotta get you for time here, but I do want to ask, so many, especially managers and new managers in transition into their positions, they find themselves, and I think also most people find themselves lost in the weeds. And so my question is for them, how can we help them distinguish while they're in the weeds, the difference between what's urgent and what's important? You know, and really understanding what they need to focus on during those times of high stress and to kind of course correct, if you will.
Oh, I understand. You know, a couple of things come to me fairly quickly. One is, what is the immediate impact of whatever this issue is? I mean, if that building's burning, we got to get out. We got to get out now.
It's a good idea.
At the same time, if there's something out there and it's a squeaky wheel or a hot fire, then start asking yourself, what's going to be the impact of this? I love this. It's called 10-10-10, and it was created by Susie Welch, who is Jack Welch's wife. She wrote a book, 10-10-10. What's the impact of this thing 10 minutes from now? What's the impact 10 months from now? And what's the impact 10 years from now? 10 minutes, 10 months, 10 years. And very often that'll help you start understanding what really is urgent and what's important. There are a lot of tools like that folks can use. And you've got to find what's
Mike, you are a master of time management. So we love having you on here. Hopefully everybody took a lot of notes. We'll definitely have you back. Real quick before we let you go, where can people connect with you? Where can they learn more from you? Where's the best place for them to get access to you?
Sure. I'd be delighted for them to reach out to Mike@perfectworkday.com. I'd be delighted to hear from them, Mike@perfectworkday.com. My book, The Perfect Workday Book, is available on Amazon, and it's available as an ebook, so it's cheap. I'll tell you this, it is not a start at page 1 and read through. It's an open to any page, and you're going to get a tip that helps you with your day. So those would be great ways to reach out. They can go to perfectworkday.com, and I do a blog pretty frequently about ways to have a better work day. So be delighted to hear from them, and be more than delighted. In fact, I'll make an offer to just your folks, to the group. Anyone who reaches out to me by email on the subject line, all they got to do is put, Jared and Natalia, we love your program. All they got to do is put great tips.
Will you settle for Jared and Natalia, we watched your show once?
I'll go with that.
Let's open up the opportunity here. Awesome. Yeah, there you go. Jared and Natalia, we watched your show. Okay. Mike, you are awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much,
Mike.
Mike.
Look forward to learning more from you, and we'll have you on again another time. Talk soon.
Thank you. Oops,
Wow.
I think I may have cut him off there.
All right, well.
That was awesome.
That was great. I mean, so many good things, just lots of gold there. And he should raise the price of his book, because honestly, time is literally the one thing that you can't change. You can't get more of it. You can't even get less of it. You've got this amount. And so for instruction and guidance around how to do more with it, man, that's powerful. And if his book is anything like what he just shared with us, then yeah, raise the price.
I certainly want to read it for sure. And it just seems
so
to
he'll
be
get two emails from us. He'll get 2 emails. Jared and Natalia will email saying, we watched your show once.
Yeah, exactly. That's awesome. All right, guys. So for the few that are still on and watching, again, please share your experiences with us, your questions, the tips that you may need relevant to the work that you're doing. I know Alyssa mentioned something earlier. She said, I've always felt that prioritization goes hand in hand with time management. When I get caught up thinking that every single thing on my list is important and of the same importance, I tend to sort of create a storm and become much less effective. So when I felt that I did a good job managing my time, it's always because I took time to triage and then dedicate my focus to accomplishing one task at a time. And I think that that's really important. Somebody had mentioned a few weeks back identifying what your ABCs are. So your A things being the absolute most important things that need to get done throughout the day, and then of course, throughout the week, and then throughout the month. B level things, right? Something that's maybe less important but still needs to get done. And then C level things, the absolute last thing on the list that's relevant, they're basically like bonuses if you actually get to those things.
Yeah, I think also that goes right hand in hand with kind of what he shared there towards the end, where he said for new managers and really anybody, have your people start creating lists. so that then you
Right.
can go and you can evaluate, okay, number one, are they creating a list? Meaning, are they prioritizing their work and are they working efficiently? And then two, are they actually targeted at the right thing? Because that kind of speaks to what we talked about in previous episodes, where as a manager and a leader, you want to be predictable to your people. And your
Right.
behaviors invite the behaviors of your team. And so if you just create this new behavior of, hey, I want everybody to have their work prioritized, once a week, twice a week in our one-on-ones, I'm going to check in on that list. You don't have to tell
Mm.
them what to put on it. You don't have to tell them when to work on it. All you have to do is actually execute on what you just said and take a look at that list. That will invite the behaviors of your people being more thoughtful about their work, prioritizing it, and hopefully getting the right things done. That probably feels a lot better to a lot of people than having a hard conversation about somebody's poor performance or their poor behavior. So look at yourself first, make those changes, and then watch how the behaviors of your team actually change.
That's incredible. And I think that again, the emphasis on this should really be that there's a sense of planning that needs to go into all of this. I mean, again, like what did you say earlier about, managers that are grilling their teams when their own garages are dirty, or just as full of junk, so it really is important that you yourself identify what your plan needs to be for the week. And then after that, from that point, then asking your team what their plans are. And as so long as you're following suit, you're not just expecting it of them, but you're also expecting it of yourself, then you can kind of create some equilibrium. And then of course, there's that sense of culture, like we are doing this together and that everybody's included in this, as opposed to the manager often or the owner often saying, these are my goals, these are my priorities, and you guys need to follow through with the things that I assigned to you, but making it more inclusive and saying, okay, well, what is it that you're also looking to get out of this, and what's important for you to accomplish this week as well?
Yeah. I mean, that proximity, right, is just imperative. Proximity, understanding, that exposure. We've got a lot of awesome people here watching. What kind of strategies do you use to manage your time? If you lead people, what works for you in helping them to get their most important work done versus some of that urgent? So definitely share with us, what you're seeing, what you're experiencing, what your best strategies are. That'd be awesome.
Right. So I do have a question for you, Jared. As far as preparation goes, I think it's, for me, I love to be prepared in advance. And I know that some people actually don't prepare for their week ahead. They actually prepare for their week on a Monday. So can you speak to, just because I know that this is something that you do really effectively as far as like time management and preparation, can you speak to when you think the best times are to manage your time or to prepare for the week that you're going into, and what your strategy is for that?
Well, so, I mean, my strategies are going to be different than, other people's. So I think when it comes to time management, honestly, it's about finding a strategy that works for you, hands down. Like, and whatever that looks like, figure it out. But because your time is so valuable, and if you want to get more done, you have to be on top of it. So that's the first thing I would say. The second thing I would say is, we do an evaluation each week for our week. So my wife and I sit down and we think about what we have going on during the week, where we need to be, who needs to be picking up who, when. We have 3 kids too. So, on top of all that we have going on already, like we've got a lot of different, conflicts at times of who needs to be where and when. So that first weekly evaluation totally happens, starting with the family. Okay, what do we need for our family? Then I drop down into my business and I say, okay, what do I need from my business here? Making sure that is not overlapping with what's happening with the family. And then we drop down and there's kind of some of the personal stuff as well. And then we evaluate. We evaluate the previous week and say, how did it go? What do we need to do better? How do we need to tweak it? And that communication that he talked about, really communicating who needs to know what you're doing, and then when do they need to know it, and then how do you protect that time. But then there's also a daily planning evaluation as well, where you sit down, you look at your calendar for the day. I identify what are my top priorities, and then I try to knock those out based on what's on my calendar. Because I think planning happens in different stages. You can write a to-do list, but then you can also go put that to-do list on your calendar at a specific time and a specific, a very, very specific place. But then you can also go a level deeper where you say, okay, for each of these tasks, here's what's going to happen within them. So if I'm going to write a blog, then I don't just say write blog. Maybe the first 20 minutes is doing research, reading other articles. Then the next 20 minutes is editing it or typing it. And then the final is I'm going to edit what I've written so far. So there's varying levels of granularity that you can go to, but the idea is to find something that works, get started with it, and then, see how it goes there. How does that differ from what you do?
Well, one, I think that the insight that you just gave right now about, planning within the plan. So I think that that's something that I haven't actually done. And I think, for the most part, everything that you're talking about is pretty much what I do. I do like to be prepared in advance. And so I tend to try to make sure that I'm planning for the upcoming week, either on a Friday or a Sunday, and really spending time looking at my week ahead and anticipating, okay, where are there going to be roadblocks, or what could possibly happen during this day that could throw me off course, and really making sure that I know what to anticipate of those days while I'm preparing for that week. I would say I don't think I heard you mention that, but I think that that's the only difference, is that I try to do that in advance, either on a Friday or a Sunday. And so that way I know when that day comes. So if I know that Wednesday is going to be an incredibly or particularly busy day, what to look out for during that day that might get in the way of things running smoothly. So for instance, traffic, that's a huge thing. And I think this is something that has come up for me. Right, yeah, not at all, right? But no, it's so interesting because I've seen people, especially like the clients that I work with, and again, even within myself, and this actually was something I had to learn a few years back, that we're not always accurately assessing. In fact, we're probably largely underestimating the amount of time that is required to get things done. And so not only that, but the time that we need to do, the time that we need for preparation. So a lot of my work involves commuting. And so I say, okay, I have a meeting. It's going to be a 2-hour meeting with somebody on a Wednesday. And then I have to ask myself, well, how much time is it going to take? How much time do I have to factor in to get to that meeting? Yeah. And then from that point, I have to ask myself, how much time from that point do I need to get ready in order to leave on time to get to the meeting on time, right? And so kind of reverse engineering the way that I'm planning my time out, again, micro planning. And so I kind of look at it from really thinking of time in terms of chunks. And then again, what are the steps involved to get me to the place that I need to get to in order to, follow through on the actual thing itself. And I think a lot of people aren't actually doing that. They're rushing around very idly, they're not consciously thinking about, okay, it's going to take me 20 minutes to get there. And then how much time in advance do I need to prepare myself to leave? And then how much time am I going to need to actually follow through on the project itself? So really that has been so helpful for me. And I would say from that point, like since I've started doing that, my time seems to flow very with ease, I would say. And I find myself feeling less stressed about my time. And then I also find myself rushing less. And I hate that sense of feeling rushed. So that has added a really nice sense of calm to my schedule for the most part. So I'll say I don't have those days where something, wrench gets thrown in and next thing you know, it's like I'm racing against the clock, but for the most part, really putting in that extra time, that attention to detail and time has been really helpful.
I love that. Wrenches are going to happen, right? In time management, wrenches are going to be thrown either by you or by somebody else. But what I love about that just practice of evaluating actually allows you to then examine, is it even worth it to drive all the way over there?
Right.
Should I even go? Can I turn this into a phone call? Can I turn this into an email? Where are we really spending our time? I read somewhere recently, they said, if time were money, how many people are buying, Jettas instead of Ferraris, kind of a thing, right? Because we spend our time in different places. It reminds me, as you're talking about the commute, it gave me shudders a little bit, because when I lived in Washington, D.C., I worked in the city, and I lived, as a crow flies, 20 miles from the city, but that's up to a 90-minute commute most days, where I would try and exercise in the morning. I would leave the gym, hurry home so I could jump in my car, drive to the park and ride, so I could catch a bus to the metro, so I could metro into the city, so I could walk to my office, work way too many hours, and then turn around and come back and do it all over again. And, as that continued on, it got to the point where we said, is this worth it? And that's the question that we have to ask of, you know, yeah, you can have a job where you're spending a ton of time. You can, you know, do all of these things that consume your time. Is it worth it? What are those rewards? For us, we decided it wasn't, and we got out of there as quick as we could. 2 months later, we were gone. And so I think that evaluation that you're talking about just really helps us to examine, like, are these things that we're spending our time, are they worth it? As Mike said, what's the reward? What is our reward?
Right. And I think the other thing, and this actually came up too when you were talking about your time management strategy, is the emphasis on communication. I think a lot of times, so when I'm working with my clients, a lot of times business owners are inundated with projects, and again, kind of switching hats a lot of the time. So they're not really sure what they need to do depending on the hat that they're wearing, and then how much time these projects, depending on the hat, it's going to take. And so what I've realized is that oftentimes they're not communicating with the right people to recruit support in these particular areas. And so one of the things that I've actually set up for them is a list of questions. And one of those questions is, who do I need to communicate with to either help better support me in accomplishing these tasks, or help honor the time in which I'm actually working on these tasks? So oftentimes, especially if you have a family, you know, and or you're working with a team, or again, if you're just in regards to your social life, you know, it's like if you've got something that you've got going on within your professional life that you need to focus your attention on, a big project, you know, are there people that you can speak to help you with this project, right? So that you don't feel like you have to do it all by yourself. Or are there people who are asking for your attention that you need to communicate with and say, hey, you know what, right now, this is what my focus is on. I don't mean to make you feel like I'm ignoring you or that I don't want to spend time with you, you know, but that I actually need to do this. And so if you can communicate in that way with them, then typically the response that you'll get is of support, is of help, right? Yep. But oftentimes we tend to isolate ourselves, or again, we tend to shut down that communication. And so that they're not receiving the support that they need. And then there's a huge sense of relief that comes with being able to share this experience with other people. And then also too, keeping people in the loop will often kind of help to prevent the miscommunications that happen as well. You know, and again, with your families, like if you're running late, you know, home for dinner, and your wife or your husband's like, where have you been for the last hour? Well, maybe if they knew in advance that this was something that you were going through or that you were working on, then there would be a greater sense of understanding, and then also like lessened expectations, and then reduced pressure to have to function in the normal way, right?
Yeah, you're totally right. And I mean, we have to protect those boundaries. I love that you brought up, like, not just telling people what you're doing, but then telling those people what you're doing who you kind of need them to stay out of your way. Because how many times do we have, you know, a client who we're working with and they're saying, well, people are always like barging into my office. Well, you've got to communicate that you're going to be in your office and you're working on something important. And then number two, if you have a habit of allowing them to barge in, then you have to stop letting them barge in. So you have to then protect that time in those instances where sometimes, like a 5-year-old, they test that boundary a little bit. They're like, yeah, she said that she was going to go in and lock the door and work on something, but let me just knock anyways. And it's kind of like, yeah, okay, they might have something that is very urgent or important to them, but the reality is if you allow it after you've tried to protect your boundaries, then I mean, it's like you've let a prisoner, you know, in that now you're kind of at their, you know, you're their subject. So yeah, it's tough.
Huge. And I think that as far as, so this is actually, I think, a huge component of managing your time well, is taking personal responsibility and accountability for where you're giving your time away. And really again, doing a weekly assessment. And even if another thing that I encourage with my clients is to do a week in reflection. So look back at the week, look at what you weren't able to accomplish, and then ask yourself why or what got in the way. Now, if it's simply because it wasn't important enough to get done, okay, that's fine. But if it was because something else got in the way, then you need to ask yourself, what was really pulling your attention away from getting that project done? And is this something that happens regularly? And how can you better assess, like, how can you better direct your attention or find a way to make sure that that thing doesn't pop up again in the future? And again, a huge thing that is a distraction for people is simply their telephones, right? So it's not always another person that's, you know, getting in the way of the project that they're trying to do, but it's just simply technology, right? So how can we better use our phones in a way, like, there's ways to turn your phone to not do not disturb, or there's apps that actually will turn off your social media apps so that you don't get any notifications, or however long you need, so that way you can really focus in on the work that you're doing, so your time and your attention isn't being taken away from you. And I think, again, it's so important to think of time management, not just in terms of how productive you are in the work that you need to get done, but also how productive you are in managing your own attention to the work that you're doing.
And progress towards your goals, right? I mean, if you're sitting there and you're surveying your progress towards what you're truly trying to achieve in your life, and you're not there, then that's time to take stock of, okay, well, where am I spending my time? And right. Then I got to go back to like what Mike Collins said was rewards. Like you've got to align those rewards. It's huge.
Right, absolutely. And again, making sure that you know exactly at the end. I think also the rewards, so I'm sure this is kind of what he was getting to, but for me, I'm a feeling person. And so I like to remind myself of how I'm going to feel once things are done, and again, if you're especially in a moment of high stress, right? And oftentimes we find ourselves in this place because we're inundated with work or behind on projects, or we're feeling like we're constantly being pulled outside of ourselves. It's like, okay, well, I'm in a moment of stress right now, but how am I going to feel once I navigate myself through this, so that way you feel more motivated to actually get through it instead of shutting down? Because I think a lot of times what happens is we get immersed into this place of stress, and again, we're in the weeds, and our tendency is to shut down during that process. So we have to have these little tricks or triggers, again, rewards, positive feelings, positive experiences, or even treating yourself. If you want to talk about rewards, like there is times like, where I say, okay, if I do this, I'm going to treat myself to some sushi. Like I happen to love sushi, right? So that would be the thing that I would treat myself to, so give yourself a positive consequence that you can look forward to if you're able to accomplish the things that you really want to accomplish.
I love that. I mean, again, clarity of what you're trying to achieve, reward yourself for the right things instead of like, oh, today's been a rough day, I'm going to just veg out on some ice cream and, Netflix, and that's right. That's what I'm going to spend my time doing. So I was bored a little while ago one night, and I wanted to really look like, what do these things that we spend our time on actually really cost us? And so I found that, the average person spends 4 hours a day on their smartphone, 4 hours. And that's in Department of Labor Statistics. 3 hours of watching television. So if you're above average and you actually only spend, let's say, 2 hours on your phone and 2 hours watching TV, that's 4 hours a day. But the average salary is $25 an hour. That's the average. So if you're making average, the average, the American average, then that equals out, that time that you're spending equals out to $18,000 a year.
Wow.
So if you're making more money than that, and you're wasting more time than that, then you're just leaving a ton on the table just in terms of, finances. And I also was really bored, so I went into like what people actually spend on things like social media, on things like, food and other things like that, and how much time they don't spend in gyms or, exercising. It's like 17 minutes a day is the average for how much time people spend exercising. 8 minutes a day is the average for how much time people spend reading books. So you've got to, like Mike said, like we've talked about, the rewards that we're focusing on, we have to have those aligned with where we want to go, how it's going to take us there. And then we've got to go out and we've got to wake up every day and rock it. And I want to ask you, like, Natalia, what is your number one advice for somebody? Let's say they're already optimizing at a high level, their time management. Like, what is your number one suggestion, go to? Like, if you do nothing else, do this.
Ooh. Oh, that's such a hard question to ask. Okay, well, I guess the number one go-to is making sure that it's written down and that you can see it. I consider myself to be highly productive in my work, and I think that in general, I'm really good at self-managing. However, even in my best moments, there's always things that I tend to miss, and when I look back at my week in reflection, I'm like, oh gosh, there was that thing that I didn't do, or oh my goodness, I forgot to complete this thing. So I think ultimately for me, the hardest thing that the hardest thing for me to do has been to actually write things down. And I actually don't do to-do lists because I think that can often take your attention away from things that are really important that need to get done, you know, and you get kind of bogged down again in the weeds that way. But what I do is I schedule things out in my planner and I make sure that I'm writing it down. And then again, from that point, I'll actually write in the time that it's going to take for me to prepare. So that way I know it's not only the time in the thing itself, but it's the time in advance to prepare for that thing. And then again, I communicate to whomever I need to either hold me accountable to that thing or to help rally support around it. So I would say the most important thing is writing it down so that you can visualize it. It's got to be out of your head. If you're relying, even I don't care how successful you are, it's got to get out of your head and it's got to be on paper or, you know, hopefully on your phone. But even then, I don't like to rely on technology because I think sometimes, again, that we're using our phone for so much now that it becomes our one go-to thing. So I think having a separate planner where you're looking at it, and then again, knowing what your time is going to be looking like the week in advance, planning back the time that it's going to take to prepare, and then communicating who you need for support or to hold you accountable to those things. I think that's my plan for success every week.
That's awesome. My wife and I have a little game. We play Jinx with our phones. So if both of us are on our phones at the same time, then whoever says Jinx, the other person has to put down their phone for 30 minutes. And so we just can't both be on the phone. And then our kids, they have the same power. They can say Jinx. And if we're on our phone and we're not doing something that's actually like meaningful, like finding directions to buy them food or diapers or something, then we have to put our phones down and we have to, you know, leave it away. So you've got to find whatever those tips are, those tricks are to manage your time.
Wait, I have another one. I have one more. Okay. So on that note, using your phone, because I know that our phone takes so much attention away from us all the time. Personally, and I don't think this is even a rule that I've set up for myself, but it is something that I abide by. So it's a secret rule, I guess, that I don't touch any apps that aren't directly related to the work that I'm doing throughout the day. So if I ever hop on Facebook, it's always because there's some kind of work related thing that I'm doing on Facebook. It's never just to be social on Facebook for idle time. And then again, other apps too, like games or whatever, like I reserve those strictly to unwind once I'm in, maybe like, I don't want to say in bed because you're not supposed to look at your phone in bed either. But you know, in the evening when I know that I'm absolutely done to decompress, I might do that, you know, or I might read, or I might then open up, you know, my laptop to watch a show for an hour. But I limit my time with those types of distractions to literally once the day is over. So I think that has been huge for me. I know a lot of people who are just like, you know, my apps are taking my attention away, and just don't use them. Just literally tell yourself that you don't get to use them until the evening time once you're already done with your day, because it's not just taking away from your work. It's also taking away from the relationships that you're trying to build and the relationships that you could be building with people. Totally. And I think that it's just really important to give yourself the opportunity to be fully present in what you're doing throughout the day with the people that you're with as well.
Amen, amen, amen. So there you have it. Everybody should have all of the tips and tricks to just be totally on top of their time management. This was an awesome show. So much good stuff. So much more that we could probably talk about time management. How do you get the most out of your day? So we'll be posting stuff in our group. If you're not a member of our Leadership Live Master Group, then come over and join. We need more.
Yes.
We need your advice and insight and thoughts. So come share.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you guys so much. And we will see you next Friday at noon.
All right. Happy Friday. See you guys.
All right. Bye.